Well, this is Julian Hamilton Barnes. I'm the chairman of the Pakistan Britain Business Council, and I also have the title as the Honorary Consul General of Pakistan in the United Kingdom for Trade and Investment. And I'm delighted to open this webinar today, where we're going to be discussing food and beverage opportunities for Pakistani exporters in the United Kingdom market. I'm delighted to welcome all participants in the webinar, including His Excellency Mohsen Ahmed Khan, the High Commissioner to London. This is the Pakistani High Commissioner to London. Also Arif Ahmed Khan, the Chief Executive of the Trade Development Department of Pakistan. We're also accompanied by Mike Nithavrianakis, the Deputy High Commissioner from the British High Commission in Pakistan. We have a number of speakers who are going to be talking through our two sessions. What I will do is I will let our moderators introduce each of the speakers as we develop through our program. But I welcome the speakers and welcome all of the various attendees from the business sector. I can see just very quickly Amjad Parvez, who's just joined us. Welcome Amjad as well. We have a fantastic relationship at that level. We work very closely with Pakistan High Commission in London, and we are delighted to be able to progress and develop this webinar going forward. Just very quickly, Pakistan Britain Business Council was set up in 2002 by Tony Blair and then President of Pakistan. This was Musharraf. Essentially, what our role is to promote bilateral trade between the two countries, and issues are now particularly important post Brexit, where there are huge opportunities in trade terms for developing business between the two countries. I also believe this is a wonderful opportunity for not just Pakistan, but also the relationship with the Commonwealth. And I think we need to focus in these areas, if at all possible, with Pakistan taking a significant role in leading the Commonwealth in developing our trade relations with the United Kingdom. Whatever the position is, Pakistan is a substantial Asian economy where huge trade opportunities exist. China has already picked up on this. They have developed the Belt and Road Initiative, and there are huge investments being made by China in Pakistan. And obviously, this is not necessarily a feature of this webinar, but to be able to emulate the relationship between China and Pakistan in terms of relationships between Britain and Pakistan, I think we need to look at those arrangements and to really look and develop and see how British PLC can develop relationships with this vast economy in Pakistan, which is growing and building, and where people in Pakistan want to become part of the world economic order. Unfortunately, the West is behind the curve in many respects in investment in Pakistan, and the need for us to start building relationships is absolutely critical. Pakistan Britain Business Council has worked for a number of over the last few years, and we've been particularly pushing initiatives in the hospital development sector, where we're looking to build and work and assist in building the healthcare sector in Pakistan, which is probably one of the key areas where support is needed, and where the Pakistan healthcare system is desperate for international support. So where we are currently, we've also been working on developing and helping Pakistan develop its PPE industry, in assisting in working on that particular front. And obviously with the current pandemic, that initiative is continuing. We've been also working very closely supporting British companies in making tenders and tendering with National Health Service procurement, with a view to securing major supplies and ideally securing manufacturing capacity and supply chain logistical support from Pakistani companies. But that situation is very much ongoing, and what we now need to think about for the current webinar is that Pakistan is predominantly in an agrarian economy in many respects, and unfortunately what happens in Pakistan at the moment with much of its agricultural production, it simply is wasted because the producers unfortunately do not have access to technology, know-how to get their products to market. And this is where engagement with British companies is absolutely critical. And so there are two elements to the process. Is Pakistan needs to be able to import all sorts of issues to support their agrarian economy. They need machinery, they need fertilizers, they need know-how, they need processing plants, they need refrigeration facilities, and they need support on logistics. And by the same token, Pakistan exporters need to engage with our British and international counterparties and the buyers of food. Now, our food needs in the West are very, very significant, and Pakistan has this massive opportunity to become and develop itself into an export community where a lot of progress can be made for the benefit of all parties concerned. And we know that the number of people in Pakistan employed in the agrarian sector is absolutely enormous, and in doing so, in developing export capacity, will help not just simply in developing Pakistan's export economy, but also supporting its internal economy, looking after and developing the needs of the country's workforce, and introducing the workforces into bringing them into modern style employment arrangements where they're looked after and assisted and supported as we try and engage in the wider international communities. So there are many, many features as to what and how things can be developed. One thing that I think is not necessarily understood by Pakistani or Pakistan producers and exporters is that Britain has created a specialist environment for Pakistani exporters in its generalised scheme of preferences, its GSP schemes. And under these schemes, countries that fall within the UK's generalised scheme of preferences can enjoy reduced tariffs when importing products into the United Kingdom. These tariffs can not only just be reduced, they can be zero-rated tariffs. And this is a very significant opportunity for Pakistan producers and exporters, because that gives them, by enjoying and securing these preferences in trade tariff terms and the like, they get a lead against other international groups in working with British importers. And just on a particular front, we've been talking about importing PPE materials, and under the generalised scheme of preferences, importers in the United Kingdom have the opportunity to purchase PPE without any trade tariffs whatsoever, and that gives them a very significant advantage as against other international exporters who are looking to secure import arrangements into the United Kingdom. The same applies to food producers. Now, I don't want to continue on for any longer, but I'm going to hand over to His Excellency Muazzam Ahmed Khan, the Pakistan High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, and I look forward to hearing his views about the opportunities that are available to Pakistani exporters who are interested in to export to the United Kingdom. Your Excellency, I leave the table to you now to follow up, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Respected Muhammad Arif Khan Saab, Chief Executive Officer, Trade Development Authority of Pakistan, Mike Nita Viranikas, please forgive me if I couldn't pronounce it correctly, UK Deputy High Commissioner and Director Trade to Pakistan, Julian Hamilton Barnes, Chairman, Pakistan Britain Business Council, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good morning in UK and good afternoon in Pakistan. It is indeed a great honor and privilege for me to address this August virtual gathering of leading Pakistani manufacturers, exporters, and representatives of the UK food companies. At the outset, let me congratulate Pakistan Britain Business Council, International Food Exhibition Authorities, and Commercial Wing of the Pakistan High Commission for organizing this virtual webinar, bringing together all the relevant stakeholders at one platform aimed amid challenging times of the COVID pandemic. It goes without saying that such initiatives provide a unique opportunity to create awareness amongst the business community of Pakistan about the potential of UK food and beverage market, highlight export potential of Pakistan, and connect big companies for long-term and sustainable economic engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, the United Kingdom is an important trade and investment partner of Pakistan. With an annual trade of more than $2.5 billion, remittance of around $3 billion, and over 100 UK companies operating in Pakistan, the UK is Pakistan's third largest export destination, second biggest investment partner, and third largest source of remittances. It is heartening to note that despite the outbreak of the pandemic, Pakistan's export to UK grew by 22% and have achieved $1 billion historical landmark during the first 6 months of the current financial year. Remittances from the UK have also registered an impressive growth of 46% during the same period. However, one important thing that I would like to highlight is that more than 90% of the Pakistan's export to the UK are concentrated in textile and apparel sector with negligible share of the food and beverages. This necessitates diversification of Pakistan's exports basket. Ladies and gentlemen, as you may also aware that after Brexit, UK is implementing its own trade and tariff policy effective from 1st of January 2021. I'm also happy to share that British government has offered duty-free concession to Pakistan at par with the EU GSP Plus facility. Under the arrangement, more than 90% of Pakistan's exports to the UK qualify for quota-free, duty-free access. Globally, the UK is ranked as the 4th largest food importer in the world and the 2nd largest drink importer. The UK is also a net importer of food and drink. In 2019, it imported food products worth 63 billion US dollar, of which around 45 billion was sourced from the EU members. Of the import items, the largest quantity is fruit and vegetable, meat and meat preparations, and dairy products. These 3 categories of food items, all of which are produced in Pakistan, account for around 50% of the UK food imports, indicating a huge potential to tap in the new trading environment. Despite the challenges and uncertainties imposed by the pandemic, the food and drink sector seems to be shielded from the difficulties experienced elsewhere and is growing in the UK market. The UK imports more than 11 billion worth of fruits and vegetables from across the world, with a meager share of 0.25%, I repeat, 0.25% from Pakistan. The UK's new trading arrangement with the EU in the shape of trade and cooperation agreement allow tariff-free and quota-free trade from the EU, but challenges in meeting divergent SPS requirement, conformity assessment, and rule of origin have made the process somewhat difficult. The recent report by the Economist Intelligence Unit finds that the food and agriculture sector faces the biggest risk from Brexit. British firms are warning of an escalation in Brexit red tapeism as the government prepares to introduce a long list of new controls on imports from the European Union from April onwards. This will result in reduced volume of trade between the EU and the UK. By the way, this is our hope. Brexit has opened the market of the United Kingdom for countries access across the world, including for the food and beverages. Pakistan being a resource-rich agriculture economy with excess supply capacity for certain food items, has a huge potential to tap into the UK food market. The search for cheaper source of food has accelerated recently in the UK after the dissolution of half-century-long trade and economic partnership with the EU. The UK is considering, we understand, is considering to import food products from Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, as these countries used to supply the bulk of food to the UK before its membership of the EU in 1973. With the resumption of British Airways and start of operations by the Virgin Atlantic, frequency of flights have increased considerably. We hope that competition amongst the carrier would bring the freight tariff for the perishable and fast-moving consumer goods down. We need to leverage this opportunity by improving our supply chain and by addressing market access requirements. It is high time that Pakistani exporters capitalize on the opportunities emerging in the wake of Brexit. Ladies and gentlemen, the UK is host to many international exhibitions and fairs, including few prominent ones on food and beverages, whereby exhibitors from across the world showcase their products. I hope TDEP and Pakistani exporter would also benefit from such opportunities by effective participation in all these events to fetch more orders and expand their network. I assure you that Pakistan High Commission and its consulates across the UK shall extend maximum support and facilitation wherever required for the promotion of Pak-UK trade and investment cooperation. In the end, I would like to thank all the respectable businessmen and the participants for sparing their precious times for this webinar and hope that this event would help connect the businesses to realize the true and real potential of Pakistan-UK trade. Thank you so much.
Rashid, are you now going to introduce Mr. Arif Ahmed Khan, the CEO of TDAP, or are you expecting me to do that?
I think it's best if you do it, Julian.
Okay. If I may, thank you very much, Your Excellency. That was extraordinarily helpful and informative. You've indicated some key figures and opportunities, and again, the opportunities that subsist with the wider Commonwealth, I think, are particularly important, and I hope that we can follow up and develop and assist. And your comment that the Pakistani exporters need to engage with UK importers is absolutely critical. And this is something that we need to focus on and develop and encourage as much as we can. I would now very quickly like to introduce you to Mr. Arif Ahmed Khan, the CEO of the Trade Development Authority of Pakistan, who will undoubtedly have some encouraging words as to how he hopes to support and build our initiatives that we're contemplating here. I hand over to Arif and look forward to your comments.
Thank you very much, and very warm greetings to everyone, to Excellency Muazzam, our ambassador in the UK, to Julian Hamilton, Mike, Mike Nithavrianakis, the British Deputy High Commissioner, and everyone else who is participating in this seminar, in this webinar. I'm extremely happy that at a time when everything seems to have come to a bit of a halt during this pandemic, our commercial section in the UK Embassy took this initiative, I'm sure under the guidance of the High Commissioner and the Pakistan-Britain Business Council, to pick up this initiative of holding this webinar, bringing the UK importers and exporters from Pakistan onto one platform. And I'm sure this is going to go a long way into the increase of food exports for Pakistan to the UK markets. Now, as the ambassador, as the High Commissioner just mentioned, whatever we export to the United Kingdom, roughly 9 to 10% of it is consists of food items. But the fact remains that of all the food materials that the UK imports from the entire world, this $150 million is just about a quarter of a percentage point, which indicates the huge potential that still exists for the Pakistani exporters to capitalize upon and to capture. What we've been doing so far, what we've been exporting so far from Pakistan were traditional things like biscuits and jams and pickles and spices and stuff like that. But I'm happy to note that that focus is also changing now, and there is now more attention being paid to value addition in this sector. And so foods which are frozen, which are semi-cooked, or which are fully cooked, are now going to be a substantial part of the export proceeds from Pakistan. And that, I'm sure, given the fact that we have a large expatriate community in the United Kingdom, and also the fact that Britons are quite fond of the kind of food that we prepare here in Pakistan, I think should be a good reason for us to capture a better part of the UK government, certainly better than the 0.25% that we are so far dealing with. So if the Trade and Investment Minister Shafiq and the Honorable High Commissioner Muazzam, who's a very respected and old colleague of mine, together with the Pakistan-Britain Business Council, if all of you concentrate on this single agenda of how to focus on bringing in more food-related imports from Pakistan into the UK market, I'm sure with Brexit having taken place and with new opportunities and new avenues being looked at both by the UK government and by the importers in UK, this is the right time to focus on this and to increase the volumes in physical terms as well as in financial terms of exports from Pakistan to the United Kingdom. The Trade Development Authority of Pakistan, as you all know, is the premier organization dealing with exports from Pakistan. And although we've been somewhat handicapped in the last 1 year because of the pandemic, 80% of our core function has been inhibited because of the pandemic. What we do mostly is hold exhibitions all around the world, more than 100 of them right around the world. Plus we send 70 to 80 delegations to different parts of the world where people go and try and market their goods. But we frankly haven't been able to do that. We haven't been able to do anything of that kind during the entire last year. And we recently have held a virtual exhibition for the textile sector, which has just concluded about 2-3 days ago. And I understand that has been effective. We probably will be doing similar virtual exhibitions in other sectors also, and certainly food and beverages would also be a sector that we would be highlighting in one of these upcoming virtual exhibitions. So my best wishes to everyone participating in this webinar. My commiserations once again to the Trade and Investment section of the Pakistan High Commission in UK. And as I said, I wish all the best to everyone engaged in this endeavor, and we will do whatever it takes to help you in this endeavor. In fact, you will be helping Pakistan, you will be helping the TDAP, and it will be a great pleasure for us to partake of this exercise. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Arif. That has been a very helpful overview of TDAP's role in promoting food exports from Pakistan. It is very sad to hear that the extent of the exports only amount to $150 million to the UK. I think the opportunity is enormously, there is enormous opportunity to expand and increase that level of trade. And you're absolutely right. We have this very large diaspora in the UK that obviously enjoy Pakistani food, and British people also love Asian food, and this is something that needs to be very much developed and looked and developed. So obviously engaging and trying to work and build this is a huge need for everybody concerned. I would like now to pass the baton over to Mike Nidavarianikis. Sorry, I do apologise. And if I could pass the banner to Mike, the Deputy High Commissioner, British High Commissioner in Karachi, to give his views on the opportunities available. That would be extraordinarily interesting to look, and I look forward to hearing his comments. So, Mike, if I may pass over to you, and I look forward to your comments. All the best.
Thank you very much, and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. His Excellency the High Commissioner, Mr. Arif, CEO of TDAP, Julian, Hamilton Barnes, colleagues from the PBBC and the Pakistan High Commission, Shafiq Saab. Very nice to see familiar faces on the screen today. I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to speak at this timely webinar, and would like to congratulate the Pakistan British Business Council and the Pakistan High Commission for organising it and for attracting a great cast of speakers. And I'm really pleased that the British diplomatic network in Pakistan and our diplomatic counterparts in the UK are working more closely together on these shared priorities. This increased level of engagement, I think, will stand us in good stead as we target a significant increase in the level of bilateral trade and investment. And if we're going to do that, we obviously need to branch out much more widely than the textile sector that the High Commissioner referred to. It's a very successful sector, but speak to anybody in the Ministry of Commerce in Pakistan or in the Trade Development Authority of Pakistan, and they will make clear to you how keen they are to see Pakistan's export sectors diversify, and the UK would be delighted if that happened too. And I anticipate that food, drink, the agri-tech sector would be one obvious one that we should all be trying to support to deliver that increased trade and investment. As everyone knows, I think the UK is a very strong proponent of free trade as a vital driver to economic growth and prosperity. I mean, it drives up competition, innovation, technology transfer. All of this leads to higher incomes and better livelihoods. And I think the global pandemic has shown the importance of keeping trade flowing and building diverse and robust supply chains. The UK obviously remains a top market in Europe for Pakistani exports, but as I mentioned, we would be pleased to see Pakistan grow its exports further and to introduce higher value products to the UK. And I see very significant growth prospects in the agri-food and drinks sector, taking into account the natural advantage Pakistan has in delivering quality produce. I think we all recognise, however, that it's not just a simple case of finding a good mango producer or a good date producer and giving them a potential customer in the UK, there are all sorts of regulatory and standard issues that we need to overcome. And if one looks at the fact that the UK has now ended its transition period with the European Union, I think it gives us an opportunity now to discuss with Pakistan directly as two sovereign countries a bespoke relationship. And that is something that I've been pleased to talk to Mr. Razak Daud, Secretary Commerce, Mr. Arif, the CEO of TDAP, and others about developing a specific government-to-government joint working group that we think can deliver some meaningful change to facilitate more trade in both directions. And let me maybe just illustrate with a few particular initiatives and proposals how we think we can help. So firstly, assisting through the Commonwealth Standards Network. This aims to tackle non-tariff barriers and promote strong trade amongst all Commonwealth states through the participation, adoption and implementation of international standards. Also, about a year ago, the British Standards Institution ran a series of workshops in Karachi and Lahore, which were funded by the then DFID, now FCDO Commonwealth Standards Network programme, and we worked alongside the Pakistan Standard and Quality Control Authority to deliver these workshops, and their purpose was to increase the visibility and understanding of the benefit that international standards can bring to support development and export potential. And this year, again, we're working with the Federal Board of Investment. I've talked to Mr. Arif Bukhari about that, about organising another webinar on food certification, which we think the British Standards Institution will again lead on. And that is the world's leading organisation dedicated to raising standards and deepening awareness of industry best practice. We're hopeful as well that Pakistan will be a pilot country for FCDO programme called Trade Connect. This aims to enhance global value chains and increase exports from developing countries to the UK and to other markets. This programme will also support UK businesses by diversifying and expanding their supply chains. It's currently under review in London, but we're hoping it will move forward. As has been mentioned, we've obviously gone through the transition period and have changed from GSP Plus under a new arrangement called the Enhanced Framework, and that means Pakistan will continue to enjoy preference access to the UK market. And as the High Commissioner mentioned, we need to branch that beyond the textiles and garments industry into a wide range of food products. We think that the fact that there is a very large diaspora, it's almost 3% of Britain's population, one of the largest ethnic groups in the United Kingdom, who have increasing demands and linkages with Pakistan. There is a great opportunity for us to do that. But equally, the fact that UK food and drink brands are well recognised in Pakistan, we think that gives us an opportunity for UK firms to invest and do business in Pakistan, and there are therefore opportunities for two-way linkages with the food and beverage companies in both countries, as well as agriculture producers to establish mutually beneficial joint venture partnerships. We're working with our regional colleagues in our Middle East, Afghanistan, Pakistan region, where the UK also has a strong market presence, and we see increasing synergies for UK companies to tap into the Pakistan market, including via shared links in Dubai, the UAE and the wider Gulf region. And let me just finally say, because the High Commissioner was kind enough to mention the increased connectivity by British Airlines, there are now 22 direct flights to Pakistan from the UK by British Airlines alone each week. And I think we can leverage that increased connectivity to remind our networks that the situation in Pakistan is a changing one and is a positive one. It is navigating the global pandemic better than many countries, and we hope that this second wave that has been in evidence in Pakistan will continue to decline from the the highs of last November. And we think that the economy is well positioned to bounce back quite positively. And if one takes that alongside the much improved security situation in Pakistan, particularly in the city of Karachi, where cricket fans will have noticed that Pakistan just managed to beat South Africa 2-0 for the first test victory in a very long period of time, it shows how accessible things are in this country and how connected they are. So the key for us, I think, is to make the introductions of the key businesses that would be interested in exploring new markets. And if the UK is going to make a success of its departure from the European Union, it will be because it's doing more business with countries like Pakistan. And so I urge everybody to do what they can to support this particular sector, and certainly the Department for International Trade in Pakistan and the wider British government community will do its part to promote the opportunities in the food and drink sector, and look forward to working with you and your partners in the period ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. That again is very helpful and explains a great deal. This position where there is greater connectivity, there is this need to rebuild our respective economies post the pandemic. The opportunities are very, very significant, and I urge both Pakistan government and the British government to follow up on the opportunities that and the offers that Mike has outlined, and the particular development of working groups and and progressing the Trade Connect program, and building and developing business opportunities, particularly with the Commonwealth, I think are enormous features and opportunities. I think now the next stage, where we reached the end of the first stage of our webinar, and now we move into the meat of the webinar with session 1, and this is entitled "The Dynamics of the Food and Beverage Market in the United Kingdom: Pakistani Brands' Potential, Sustainability and Challenges in the Face of COVID-19 and Brexit." The session will be moderated by Nigel Peters, OBE, Vice Chairman of Pakistan Britain Business Council, and the session will host Ms. Erica Coulson, EMEA Food Sector Propositions Manager, British Standards Institution, Mr. James Murray, International Sales Director, Montgomery Group, Food and Drink and Hospitality, and Mr. Paddy Willis, CEO, Mission Ventures UK. Obviously, this is going to be a very interesting and compelling part of the webinar, and I look forward to hearing everybody's views and comments. And I'll pass over to Nigel, who will give a bit more of an introduction of each of the speakers. But again, as I repeat, I look forward to the various comments from all concerned with great interest. And Nigel, over to you.
Well, thank you, Julian. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, speakers from Pakistan as well. Very interesting morning. I've been up early this morning. Mike mentioned cricket. Well, of course, there was another little test match going on in India, so it was excellent news for England, and I suspect our cricket fans from Pakistan as well will see the result. So it's been a good morning already so far. Here in the depths of winter, it's nice to look out on sunnier climes. I think the food and beverage sector is an absolutely key one. When I was, before I retired, I worked as a consultant helping SMEs in Central Asia develop their food and beverage industries and export them around the world. And I think two key things came up there. The first is when you're putting value added on these products, which is what you have to do, food safety science and certification, and Mike from the British High Commission mentioned this, the certification, which is mainly around ISO 22000, absolutely essential. And there's some really good training courses out there, I know, for companies. And the other thing is marketing and branding. Really, you know, it's a sophisticated market in the UK. I'm sure we're going to hear that. And that's always an area I think a lot of small companies know how to produce. They perhaps don't understand marketing and branding and those issues quite so much. So a lot to talk about. We're going to have 3 speakers, and then Julian, I think we will invite questions, probably by the raise the hand button, which we all have at the top of our screen. First off, going to welcome James Murray. James, as you heard from Julian, is with Montgomery Events, the really one of the leading UK exhibition conference organisers. I've had pleasure myself of working with them in other sectors. I'm sure James is going to show us what they can do in this sector. We will then, after James, we will go on to hear it from Erica and then Paddy. But first of all, James, over to you.
Thank you, Nigel, and Your Excellency, Mr. Khan from TDAP, Julian, Rashid, and everyone involved in putting the webinar together. Really appreciate you involving Montgomery and giving me the opportunity to talk briefly about our flagship show, IFE. I'm just going to share my screen. Nigel, if you'd be kind enough to give me the nod when you can see my presentation, that would be very helpful. But hopefully everything will go to plan.
Yes, that's okay, James.
Wonderful, wonderful. Bear with me just a second as I get the full screen up. These things always take that little bit longer than you hope. Great. So hopefully you can see. Nigel talked a little bit about Montgomery. Montgomery were established in 1895, so we have over a century of experience with events around the world, serving a whole host of industries. But food, drink and hospitality is a major part of what Montgomery are about. And we run leading food, drink and hospitality events across 3 continents, Europe, Africa and Asia. As Mr. Khan mentioned, it's been a very challenging time with the global trade show calendar on pause, but it's great to see this coming to life. I believe there's quite a large amount of Pakistani exporters involved in Gulf Food in a few weeks' time, and we certainly wish everyone there the very best of success. What I would say is that there's no doubt that the power of face-to-face remains vitally important, and that trade shows and growing food and drink exports are intrinsically linked. I wanted to talk very briefly about IFE. IFE is the UK's largest and most respected food and drink trade event, and is our flagship show here in the UK, and it will take place from the 28th of February to the 2nd of March next year. We have more than half of our exhibitors coming from overseas, so it really is a truly international event. Participants come from 90 countries. We have 30 international pavilions, so supported by export development organisations such as TDAP. And actually, in our last event in 2019, we had 8 exhibitors participating from Pakistan, including an official pavilion. And I'm delighted to say that Rice Experts Enterprises have already confirmed to return in 2022. Give you a very brief overview in terms of our audience. The 2019 show attracted 25,000 attendees, and it really is an impressive mix of buyers ranging from the major players through to independent operators in food service and hospitality, retail, the major grocery retailers, online, the growing online category, but as I mentioned, sort of smaller operators too. And of course, for international companies, the vitally important wholesale, import and distribution channels. Worth also mentioning that we attract a lot of manufacturers, over a quarter of our audience, and obviously they are looking to source it in bulk. To further add value for exhibitors and really buyers alike, we're delighted for the first time in 2022 that we'll be hosting 6 events at Excel, as well as IFE. We'll be joined by HRC, which is the most established food service and hospitality exhibition in the UK. IFE Manufacturing Solutions, which is dedicated to the UK food and drink manufacturing market. So includes exhibitors showcasing processing equipment, packaging, but also ingredients being a big category of that. Pub, which is the only show dedicated for the burgeoning pub industry here in the UK. The Festival of Enterprise, which is a new exhibition focused on companies scaling up or starting to grow their food businesses. And the London Produce Show, which could have an interesting connection as well, the largest produce exhibition in the UK. Buyers can freely cross between these events, so it offers huge value for participants. In our opinion, it's a game changer and will be far and away the largest gathering in the UK for the food, drink and hospitality supply chain. Finally, because I know that Erica and Paddy have some really important points to share, I just wanted to talk to you about a new product that will be launched in April, IFE Connects. Certainly the last year has given us the opportunity to test and develop a digital solution to complement our events, and I'm delighted to confirm that we will shortly launch IFE Connect. IFE Connect will feature and host an interactive supplier and product directory, as well as invaluable content for our community. So it will include things like live product demonstrations, virtual tastings, white papers, reports, interviews, webinars, panel discussions, business support advice, podcast, roundtable events, lots of really important content to help the community that we serve. With an active and engaged community of food and drink professionals, IFE Connects will incorporate groundbreaking technology to match products with buyer interest, and that will help to create new leads 365 days a year. So it's been challenging times, but it's also exciting times, and we've got exporters as we move forward. I'll finish now because, as I say, Erica and Paddy have lots to share. But if I can be of further help, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And over to you, Erica. I'll just stop sharing my screen. Bear with me just a second.
Thank you, James. That was really good. And as somebody who's attended the IFE events as a speaker, and also we ran a clinic for standards and certification, and the first steps to that, I do very much believe that IFE is a leader in the market in this. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, James, and thank you all for having me on this webinar. So I'll share my screen with you now. So if someone can just let me know when you can see that and it's all up in lights.
Yeah, that's fine, Erica.
Excellent, thank you. So yeah, I'm going to concentrate on exporting to the UK in reference to standards today. So first of all, for those of you who don't know BSI, the British Standards Institution, we're a Royal Charter company, and all of our profit is reinvested back into BSI to improve our products, services and solutions. So we don't operate as most do with shareholders. So because of this, we can operate as a purpose-driven business focused on providing the best service and the best advice to the industry. In terms of our clients, you can see there that we have over 86,000 clients in 193 countries. 49% of these are in the Fortune 500, so we work with some really big brands, but equally I think what we've done more and more in the last few years is working with SMEs and smaller enterprises to help them to become more resilient and gain access to new markets. We started off in standards by developing a standard for tram tracks to align London's gauges in 1901, because they were previously to this they were all different, and it was an absolute nightmare to replace these. So standardization there has really helped and made a difference. And now we work with smart cities, we work with IoT innovations and automation, smart locks, and really our ethos is to work with people like you to create and use these standards that are going to be helpful to industry and help us to innovate in the future. In relation to the food sector, here are just a handful of our clients. Interesting to see, James, that some of these are your fellow IFE visitors. And very much we do focus on our auditing and training as well as our standards formation. So relating to exporting food and beverages to the United Kingdom, I think here we've heard from many of our established speakers this morning that, and this afternoon if you're in Pakistan, that the UK market is a very bountiful opportunity, and with the pandemic and Brexit, I don't think this reduces the opportunity. It might even increase the opportunity for new producers to bring food and beverage into the UK market. So very much here, I think we need to concentrate on the fundamentals with standards and certification, and the focus really there being on food safety and ethical concerns. The UK market is full of consumers who are increasingly aware of issues around sustainability, and really want their food they want to know where their food comes from. So a little bit about engaging with buyers, but I think this comes into the marketing elements that I think Mike mentioned earlier on. What are your unique selling points? Who are you? You know, what makes you different to all of the other producers around the world, not just from UK or Pakistan, that are looking to import their products, well, looking to export their products into the UK. Explain your range, and specs of price, cost not retail, I think will help you when you eventually get to somewhere like IFE as well. Relating to certifications, there are so many certifications out there, it can sometimes be very overwhelming to look at and to know exactly what you need to access the market. So I'll try and demystify some of this as we go forward. So if you're looking at exporting to the UK, and you're looking at exporting to a retailer as a white label producer, perhaps you're going to need to know about GFSI standards. GFSI is the global benchmark for food standards, and a lot of retailers will accept varying different standards, but most of them will be GFSI benchmarked. So, for example, BRC is probably the leading food safety certification in the UK, and it's got over 20,000 or so certifications in the UK, and it's what the UK retailers are looking for really. FSSC 22,000, IFS are also GFSI benchmarked, and you may see these. For smaller producers, salsa, you'll see HACCP and GMP accepted sometimes, and of course ISO 22000. But these three bottom standards are not GFSI benchmarked. So depending on who you're selling into, you'll really need to find out what they are requiring. Generally, the likes of Tesco, Asda, etc., will look for BRC, but the likes of Aldi, you might be expected for IFS. So I think it's really important, if you're looking at importing into the UK, to have a forward plan of where you're planning to engage, because the certifications that you would like to achieve will depend upon who you would like to sell into. There are also accompanying standards for the whole food and beverage supply chain, including packaging and storage and distribution. So again, here it's a learning curve, and it's just something that once you get your head around it, it makes the process easier, and it really does give you that ticket to trade when you've got this qualification. Other things that you might see on tender requirements: quality management, health and safety, environmental monitoring, etc. These standards, these are all the ISO standards, so quality management being ISO 9001, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And again, it's just one of those things that you might want to look inside your business for, to see what is going to be best applicable. Something to remember about the UK market, coming back to the consumer angle as well, we see lots of claims on packaging, and there are laws and legislation around what you can put on packaging and what you can claim. So again, it's best to check things like the Food Standards Agency for guidance on particular claims such as nutrition and health claims. Just to finish off from me as well, so when exporting to the UK, the BSI trust mark is something that we've introduced new in the last year or so, and this test, for example, this kite mark on honey here tests that the actual honey is from Scotland, from the heather, and is actually pure honey. And by working with our partners FERA, we've been able to award this and have this widely recognised trust mark on a food product. And just to go over the market value in the UK for that, we can see that that mark is recognised by 82% of the UK adult population, and people associate it with high quality and trustworthy products. So it's really something that we're very happy and passionate about to be able to offer to the food and beverage market now. And that's me. Thank you for your time, and the resources are available on our website if you'd like to see any more. And I'll pass you over either back to James or back to our next presenter.
So I thank you very much, Erica. It's after a couple of years retirement, pleased to hear about ISO 22000 and HACCP and all those lovely acronyms from the food safety world, but they are absolutely so essential. I can't emphasize it enough. I worked as a consultant helping honey producers in Tajikistan export to UK, and if Tajikistan can do it, I'm sure the Pakistan honey producers can do it as well. And there is support. Mike mentioned that there are British aid programs in this sector, so I'm sure if SMEs in Pakistan contact the British High Commission, there may well be support to help them access some of the certification services that Erica mentioned. But thanks for that, Erica. Our final speaker in this session is going to be Paddy Willis. Paddy, it's a fascinating CV that I've got a very brief synopsis of here, but you're going to talk about your company Mission Ventures and what you can do to help food and drink companies in this sector. So over to you, Paddy.
Thank you, Nigel. Right, I too am going to share some slides. So Nigel, again, if you wouldn't mind doing me a favour of confirming when you can see that. Is that visible to you now?
Yeah, that's fine, Paddy.
Okay. I had problems earlier on getting this to go to full screen, so I'm hoping that there's enough on there for people to be able to see the main screens clearly. So I too would first off like to thank our host for today, His Excellency, and the extended team for putting on this excellent event. We are a small organisation. We don't have the same history as Montgomery or the British Standards Institute. I'll briefly introduce who we are so you have some context to this and perhaps understand a bit more about why we are involved in today's session. So Mission Ventures, we're a small business. We've been going about 6-7 years now. We're a team of entrepreneurs from the food industry with, as you can tell from the grey hairs, over 80 or so years experience between us in building brands within the food and drink industry. Those 4 logos at the bottom of the slide there are businesses that we've built from scratch ourselves and managed to sell successfully to the trade. And we've, in the last year or so, launched over 100 brands into the major retailers here in the UK. We're also, as of last year, the venturing partner for Warburton's, which is the UK's largest bakery business and actually has a reputation of being the most purchased food brand here in the UK. And thanks to our partnership with Montgomery, we work with a number of overseas countries and agencies and helping them and their brands to understand the UK market and the opportunity here. And so we're working with several countries as we speak on their market entry. So why the United Kingdom? And we've heard some fantastic statistics today, and my word, there does appear to be a huge opportunity for Pakistan for the level of export currently that's being achieved to the UK. And why the UK? It is a significant business, significant country and economy here in Europe. Although we have stepped out of the EU, we were, when we were in it, the second largest population and the third largest economy. As it has already been mentioned, over half of our food is imported. And we have, with such a multicultural society, we have a very strong interest in world food. I think possibly with the lockdown of COVID, that's also enhanced people's interest in being able to, if they can't travel to countries, then at least bring the cuisine to their homes. And also very, very importantly, and this is why I think we're seeing such an increase in the interest in overseas brands coming to the UK, there is a reputation for being the shop window for European buyers in supermarkets. They will come to London and to the UK to explore and find out what's being put on the shelves. Now, we do have a very dominant retail dynamic here in the UK, unlike a number of other countries where we have very, very strong retail partners. It's an incredibly professionalized industry, but we are dominated by the top 4 of those supermarkets, as you can see from this slide here. Those numbers have probably slightly changed now with some of the pandemic, but the important point also on the bottom of that slide is that online shopping has increased exponentially. It's almost doubled over the course of 2020. So that is a great advantage, particularly for smaller brands who are trying to find a way to tell their story to consumers. But it does also have a downside, which means people are spending less time dwelling and perusing the shelves of these supermarkets. So the opportunity for discovery is being compromised. If we look briefly at some top trends, I picked 5 here that we see happening in some scale. First off, personalization. You may have seen this back in Pakistan as well. Brands like Coca-Cola and Nutella and others have found ways, particularly through this direct-to-consumer channel, to offer a personalised approach. So you can put your name or your friend's name on a product. Freedom food, that's basically all of the movement towards free-from, healthier alternatives. But people are unwilling to compromise on the taste. So there's a very high expectation now. I know when we first started doing work with startups, you know, when someone said, I have a free-from product, you sort of slightly wince and say, okay, I'll try it. But now the quality is superb. So often it's very hard to tell the difference between a product which is free from something and one which is not. Taste not waste. I've used an example here of the circular economy. Toast Ale is a very interesting business we know very well. They make beers using waste bread as the source of yeast. Fantastic product. And has an amazing following within the millennial generation because people love the idea that this is taking food waste and turning it into something that they can share with their friends. No small print, I've used the RX bar example there, a great example of a company, an American brand, that didn't hide away its ingredients on the back of pack. They were upfront with it, and this is something which we see an awful lot more of. People are jaded in their experience with a lot of the big food brands that have, you could argue, have not necessarily done them well from a health perspective. So being upfront and not hiding. And the last one here is healthier indulgence. So there's an example, Cadbury's part of the Mondelez group, who have found a way to reduce sugar by 30%, arguably not to compromise too much on the taste experience, but there are many, many examples where people are looking to deliver the same experience and that concept of indulgence, but making it a little bit healthier. So in relationship to your own products and brands, what are the consumers here in the UK really looking for? Well, clearly taste is incredibly important. If somebody buys your product, unless it's 100% functional, if it's a product that they choose to buy, it has to taste good, otherwise they won't come back and repurchase. Convenience is an incredibly important feature of the market here now in the UK. There's been a huge explosion in the evolution of ready meals and food to go. So people don't want to have too much complexity in the products that they're buying. And health. COVID has been a real spotlight on this factor. We have a whole program that's working on childhood obesity here in the UK, which we're a partner of. And health is an incredibly important feature now when people are looking and making their choices and selections. And right in that central point, if you can, you have to have, I would argue, at least 2 of those. And if you can achieve 3, then you're right in that sweet spot. And I've added in brackets there with added purpose. That's because brands these days are increasingly looking for opportunities to express their purpose, their vision, their why, if you like. And that's incredibly important for the younger generations, Generation Z and the millennial generation. Telling your story. Well, what's your challenge? Well, your challenge obviously is that, first off, you're not here in the UK. And you are approaching a market which is incredibly vibrant. We see over 6,000 products at least launched every year. So you've got a lot of noise. That there is the poor buyer sat in his chair, being bombarded by salespeople trying to get him to take notice of of their products. But if you're not here in the UK, what you really need to be considering is, what is the market opportunity? Is there an opportunity for your product? And if so, where is the best place to try and land it? Where is the best place to try and get your product onto shelf? And is the business actually sustainable? By the time you've got it here, you've shipped it, you've paid tax and duty, etc. Is it going to be able to compete effectively? So, how do you break through that noise? So if you're that person sitting in that chair, what are their considerations? Well, first off, they have to understand that your brand is going to add category sales. These shelves are not elastic. And for your product to go on, somebody has to come off. So you have to be able to demonstrate and show how your brand is going to attract new consumers into that category, or encourage existing consumers and customers to buy or pay more. Those really are the key metrics that they're going to be considering when they're looking at your product. But really, and this is something we spend a lot of time working with startup founders on, it's this point about understanding what the consumer need is. If you can't demonstrate that you're meeting an unmet consumer need, then really what is the point of your product or your brand? That may sound a little bit harsh, but it is incredibly important to understand that point, because as I'll say in a minute, this is about building a brand. It's building a foundation for your products into the UK market. Now, for anyone who's in the Trade Commission team in London, I'm sure this may be a familiar question. We speak to a number of embassies here in London, and they all say the same thing, which is every week I get an email from somebody back home saying, "Can you get me the name of the buyer at Tesco's for my category?" Unfortunately, that's not an import or export strategy, and you have to consider this is not a sprint to get on shelf. This is a marathon. You have to plan a campaign. And this is a slightly out of date slide we've used before now, talking to founders here in the UK. It's understanding that you need to build a platform, a solid platform of discovery for your brand. And you have to think, so our advice to anybody thinking of coming to the UK is to consider, what is it taking for those 6,000 products, many of them coming from startup businesses here in the UK? What are they doing to get on shelf? How are they getting noticed, and how are they relating to their consumers? So on that bottom line there, in year one, you have typically most of those are in the independent sector, and then gradually move up more into the mainstream retailers and food service suppliers, and then eventually maybe you're going to get that wonderful listing with the category buyer at Tesco's or Asda. Now, that's a massively simplified journey line, as you'll see, but what we really do say is you have to think about this as a campaign. This is not a battle. This is a war that you're embarking upon to land on these shores and to build your business. And fundamentally, although you may find that some of you are possibly limited a little bit by the nature of your products, but we would say always consider how you can build a brand. You know, a product on its own is just a commodity. It's a set of physical attributes. But when you're talking about a brand, you're making that emotional connection with you. And it's much harder for people to walk away from a brand than it is to walk away from a product. So once you've won them over as a brand, you have a much greater chance of long-term success with them. I just want to show one case study. So this actually is an example of a business that my partner, Nigel Parrott, worked on. He, with a young entrepreneur, they saw an opportunity for these coconut slices that were coming from Thailand. At the time when those first were being imported, they were selling just about one 20-foot container a year. So they understood that there was an opportunity here. They looked at the market, they looked at competition, they looked at where it might fit on shelf and who the consumer was going to be, and what was the need they were meeting. And what they realized was there was an opportunity for a healthier snacking brand. Coconut water was a very big trend at the time, and this was an extension, if you like, of that mindset that coconut is good for you. But what they did was they understood the local market here in the UK. So rather than it being a fried product with a bit of added sugar, because that was the taste in Thailand, what they did was they understood that it needed to be baked, so it was healthier, not fried, and they used salt, turning it into a savoury snack rather than a sweet snack. And you can see the numbers there. Soon after they made that transformation, did the rebranding, and they were shipping 48 times more product in the year than previously. So just one example of how you can take an existing product which is popular back in its home country, and by understanding the local conditions and the market interests here in the UK market, adapt it into a very, very successful brand, which subsequently was sold. And that's why Nigel has joined our company to work with us on building other challenger brands. So briefly, the solution as we see it, if you want to launch and if you want to be successful in the UK, first off, you must know the market. You must understand who your competition is, how are you going to compete alongside them, what makes you unique, as Erica was saying earlier on, you have to have your USPs well defined. Understand where you should be focusing your activity, or what are the targets that you want to be first achieving as a brand entry strategy. And really importantly, do think like a startup. It may have been a while since your business was a startup, but try and get into that mindset of understanding, because all those other new brands that are trying to, there are many product extensions and brand extensions coming out of existing big food companies. But most of the people that are competing for the competition, are competing to get the attention of that buyer, are coming from the SME market. They're brands which maybe haven't been seen before, but have done their time in those independent stores for a year or so to build up their customer base and their credibility, and are now getting the eye of the buyer. If you haven't done that groundwork, you'll find it much harder to land physically and emotionally with the buying teams. So I'm going to finish there. Hopefully that's been a whistle-stop tour. Hopefully it's been of some assistance to you in understanding a little bit about how we approach the market here, thinking like entrepreneurs, thinking as the community of people that we work with, and as a young brand, new brands. If anyone would like to follow up with any further information, we do a range of insight services that we could offer, and we do this in association with James and the team at Montgomery. So I will pause now and hand back to our moderator, Nigel.
Well, thank you, Paddy. That's right, if you unshare your screen for us, lovely. I thought that was an excellent session. Thank you very much to the three speakers. I mean, what we've heard, first of all, get your certification right, get your ISO, BSI, get your HASP standards. Really look at that if you're in food manufacturing. Then, of course, I mean, trade is a two-way process. We're looking at helping Pakistani companies export to the UK, but I thought what Paddy showed is that there are a number of British companies that will help those companies export. So it shows how trade is a two-way process. It really does. And of course, then when you've got your product, then show it at one of the shows that James and Montgomery are putting on. So it's a nice coming together there. By my clock, we're running slightly late, but I did say at the start of this session, and Rashida's asked me to moderate the next session as well. But if anybody does have any burning questions, on the top bar there is a hand. If you just click on that hand, yes, and we've got a question from Mr. Amjad Pervez. Over to you, sir. If you would like to unmute yourself. Can you unmute?
Am I okay now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Hello, everybody, and thank you to all stakeholders who've managed to put on this brilliant webinar. So I'll do a very quick introduction. I'm somebody who's traded in the food sector for the last 40 years. We've got probably one of the largest food service companies here that operates in the food service sector, in the independent sector. So just to give you an idea, we have probably about 12 cash and carries, probably 500 sub-wholesalers, and in a typical week, we would serve probably 30,000 B2B customers. We're predominantly supplying the hospitality sector, but we've been in the independent retail sector for quite a while. So really understand the sector. And the second bit is I'm chairman of an organization called Jumpstart Pakistan, as Julian has already alluded to. We're probably one of the largest independent entrepreneurial movements of Pakistan stroke overseas Pakistanis based in 30 countries, working with 50 universities in Pakistan, 20 cities. Just to give you a kind of context of where I'm coming from. So I won't repeat a lot of the stuff that has been said, but I think there is an aspiration or a wish of companies from both sides for governments to do a lot more. I'm somebody who believes that governments on both sides should facilitate the environment in terms of regulation, in terms of oiling the machinery of process, whether it's import or export. And I think that is where it should stop. The rest is the wealth creation and employment is all up to the individual firms, because that is where wealth is created. I've been trying to work with Pakistan for the last 30 years, and very briefly, I will give you my kind of experience, and from that companies in Pakistan and companies here in UK may learn. I think fundamentally we, as Paddy said very correctly, this is a marathon and not a sprint. And for somebody who obviously understands the UK market, the European market really well, I obviously being a Pakistani heritage person, I wanted to actually interact with companies in Pakistan. But I think the fundamental problem where I think the agricultural universities that TADAP and the government needs to focus on is the supply chain and the value addition consistency. That is the fundamental problem, and the reason for that is that 95% of your farmers are not big commercial farmers. They have typically 2 acres to 5 acres, and the second whammy that you've got, unfortunately, they're not very literate. So diffusion of innovation and new ideas is very difficult for them to actually grab hold of. And this is not a criticism of the institutions in Pakistan, particularly the universities. They tend to be very ivory tower and academia. But I think the future, where what they need to do is whatever they've adopted, whether it's about seed, whether it's about germination, whether it's pesticide, whatever it is, they need to actually focus on delivering to those people. So we've done it with mangoes when we had a problem with fruit flies, but unfortunately with other products, whether it's fresh, chilled, whatever, we're not managing to do that. And as the Honourable Commissioner already said, we have probably the largest Pakistani diaspora here in UK. So if you look at the independent sector, that is the one that is going to be growing because of localism. So if you look at what's happening post-COVID, the supermarkets and the hypermarkets are actually decreasing in terms of their market share, and the discounters and the independents will increase. So I totally agree with Paddy in terms of your market diffusion or entry into the market. That's where you should actually be focusing on. But I think what Erica talked about is actually standardization and quality parameters. So the first bit that I would urge and desperately ask the institutions in Pakistan to do is to make sure that your value proposition, whatever it is that you're doing, that is consistent. So if I get a container of chilled food or frozen food or whatever it is, right, the consistency is there, right, not just for one container, but is there for forever. But that is a massive problem that we've got. And then I think we've got to, as Paddy has said, there are different segments in UK market. So you've got your Tesco's and Asda's, then you've got your independents, but then you've got your health food sectors, you've got wholesalers, you've got manufacturers, and you've got people like us who are B2B and B2C as well. So I think there is a huge opportunity, but if we do not understand the ecosystem and where the bottlenecks are, right, and that is the key reason why we're not getting, despite having the biggest overseas Pakistanis here in Pakistan, who actually literally control the independent sector. Despite that, we have the dismal kind of exports from Pakistan. So that would be my humble request to the institutions and the ministries. And if there were more companies on the webinars like this, it would make my job in terms of actually doing the trade much more easier. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Purveyor. I thought that was an excellent talk, and indeed, our next speaker is going to be Mr. Shahzad from the Pakistan High Commission here in London, and I'm sure he took on board some of your comments there. We heard earlier as well from the British Deputy High Commissioner in Karachi that hopefully there will be soon part of the British aid programme will be targeted at this sector. Mike has left us now, I think, but both governments, and this is where PBBC, Rashid and colleagues can play a part, because the PBBC is very much a partnership between the two governments and the private sector. So I'm sure we can continue to take those points on board. But thank you very much for that, Mr. Purveyor. That was well understood. I think now, if we've not got any more hands raised, I'll move on and introduce our next speaker, who is going to be Mr. Shafiq Shahzad, who is the head of commercial and trade at the Pakistan High Commission in London. Mr. Shahzad has a very brilliant CV, and before coming to London, he's been here a couple of years now. I think this is just your second anniversary, Mr. Shahzad. But before that, you were with the ministry in Pakistan, helped negotiate the Pakistan-China trade deal and many other trade deals as well. So the floor is yours, Mr. Shahzad.
Thank you, Nigel. Thanks for a very elaborate introduction. First of all, let me thank Pakistan Britain Business Council, in particular, Mr. Julian and Rashid, for organizing this event in collaboration with Pakistan High Commission. And I'm very delighted to see all the leading organizations and important bodies from the UK side, like we have been able to invite IFE, BSI, and from Pakistan side, we have had with us TDAP, and now after my comments, we'll be having speakers from Punjab Board of Investment and also from Fruits and Fruits and Vegetables Exporters Association. So we have been able to put together all the relevant stakeholders. I am more so on the noting side, because a lot more to be done by this office, of course, with the help of PBBC. Well, we are trying, and we have been, focusing on, as stated by Pakistan High Commissioner Excellency, that we are trying to diversify Pakistan's export basket, given that we have immense potential, especially post-Brexit. UK is looking to source not only food and beverages, but the entire range of products from rest of the world as well. So we should try to take advantage of the first mover in this market. We have the advantage of this enhanced preferences, whereby more than 90% of Pakistan's exports are subject to zero duty. So we need to, and there are a couple of other good signs, like Pakistan's economy is on a positive trajectory. Our exports to UK are growing. Airlines are operating. So a couple of good signs, and there's a need that we need to leverage all these good signs for the benefit and for the promotion of Pakistan-UK trade. I'll not speak much on that, because we have two more speakers on our side with this. Thank you so much. I must thank all the kind speakers who have spared their time to speak on this event and share their valuable thoughts. Thank you, Nigel. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shahzad. So we have a couple of speakers that you mentioned now. You mentioned, I think we have a speaker from the Punjab Investment and Trade Board. I don't know the name of that person, but if they're on the call, they're very welcome to join us. Yes, here we are, here over to the Punjab.
This is Dr. Irfa Iqbal, Nigel, so if I may just very quickly intercede.
Yes.
Dr. Irfa Iqbal is from the Punjab Board of Investment, and may I add, PBBC has an excellent relationship with the Punjab Board of Investment, and we are very impressed with the way that they manage to look after and develop workforce.
Thank you. Dr. Iqbal, if you can hear us, we have your presentation on screen.
Yes.
So please go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead, Dr. Iqbal.
Okay. First of all, thank you so very much for this opportunity. It definitely is a great pleasure to connect with all the relevant stakeholders vis-a-vis Pak UK business and trade relations are concerned. I will try to be very quick so that I can have then more time for questions, if at all there are any. First of all, what PBIT is, Punjab Board of Investment and Trade. Simply putting, without this heavy text slide, I would say PBIT is the face of Punjab for the rest of the world, and also for domestic commerce for other provinces in the country. So we are face of Punjab for all the economic initiatives. Focusing on the agri side, our approach is to go for farm to fork. All the value chain in agriculture, I'll just skip it, but we are focusing on all these areas of crops, livestock, forestry, and fishing. I'm not comfortable with this. मैं कहीं से पढ़ नहीं पा रही हूँ. इसको करीब करें ज़रा. I'm sorry for this interruption. Okay, all right. बड़ा करें. ये खत्म हो गया. Okay. I'm sorry, but am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
All right. So this is the Pakistan agriculture sector outlook, where we can see that agriculture is now contributing 19.31% of the total GDP. Service sector, if we notice, is on the hike in Pakistan. And in agriculture, as I just said, we have crops, fruits, livestock, forestry, fishing. Sorry, I'll take you back to this slide once again. If you can see that the contribution of agriculture sector in GDP had been decreasing since 2014-15, but it just took a pace from 2018-19 to 19-20. If we look at the product line, most of the products have shown increase. However, cotton and sugarcane posted a negative growth. So I just want to show you the picture of situational analysis in Punjab. Now, everyone knows that Punjab is the economic backbone of Pakistan, and we can just see the importance and significance of Punjab, that in Pakistan, 52% of the population, 60% of the labor force, and 25% of the land area is by Punjab. This is the Punjab share in national GDP, which is 55%. The main fruit basket of Punjab, this is the list of the fruits. I will not go into the detail respecting the time limitations. Now, the value proposition for high-tech and innovative way forward. We have a large local market. So, 4th largest milk producer in the world, 11th largest citrus producer in the world, 35 different varieties of vegetable are produced here, and more than 30 varieties of fruits are produced here. A very relevant slide for this forum, that Pakistan is the ecosystem for startups. Government has designed enabling policies to facilitate infrastructure. Local investors are learning and getting towards investing in innovation. All ecosystem players are helping cultivate local talent. These are the identified investment opportunities: food processing, pulp and waxing for export enhancement, packaged juice unit. Now, this is important because, as I just shared with you, that the service sector is on the hike in its contribution towards GDP. Plantation of imported fruits and vegetables, frozen foods, value addition in fruit syrup, olive oil extraction units, dairy value added products, cheese, butter, oil, potato powder, flakes, meat export processing zone, and cold storage facilities. These are the areas which are there to come in. And then there are allied investment opportunities like fertilizer sector, pest, seeds, and packaging with branding of Pakistani products. These are the hidden opportunities for trade with UK. So you can just see what is the Pakistan's export to UK in different products, the agri-related products, and UK imports from the world. So the gap is huge, and Pakistan definitely can make more efforts to fill in this gap and to increase the export of all these products to UK. Unlocking agri startups in Punjab. The current situation is that with 140 million people, and we have 140 million people under the age of 30 years. So we are a huge demographic bulge with so many youth around. 4 times growth in data-enabled mobile connections in the past 3 years, and the economy projected a growth at 6% per year through 2026. There are countless entrepreneurs, significant venture capital investment, and promising startups with a clear path to becoming unicorn, over $1 billion valuations. But the issue is that agriculture sector is controlled by low-tech, less innovative segment of the population. We identify these challenges and gaps because we need to then focus on these areas. Traditional cultivation and low value addition result in high wastage, so there is loss of value. Lack of access of products with made in Pakistan tag due to high quality standard demanded by international markets. And there is a missing link of R&D with the farms and agro processing industry. So these are the areas where you have national companies to also join hands so that we can fare well. Opportunities within agri value chain. Frozen foods, these are the areas that I mentioned earlier as well. Frozen foods, value addition in major food crops, edible oils and fat, beverages, fruits, dairy, vegetable, and intermediate value adding products. So these are areas where we have huge opportunities. Since Pakistan being an agriculture-based economy, we can go further with joining hands with the international companies and can score really well.
I think we've probably
Yeah,
lost the link.
I hear that.
Mr. Shehzad, I think the screen is frozen in Punjab, but I think we've probably had most of the presentation, haven't we? Which I think just served to emphasise that many of the points that we were discussing earlier. You know, the Made in Pakistan label has to have behind it the proper certification. I think that was a point that Dr. Iqbal was making there. I think we need to get back to the main screen, don't we? And stop. Rashid, can we stop share? Ah, here we are. Lovely. Well done, Rashid. Is there anything you would like to say after that presentation, Mr. Shehzad?
Thank you, Nigel. I think we can proceed further. Rashid Sir, if we have Mr. Waheed from Fruits and Vegetables Association, we can invite him to share his thoughts, or otherwise we can have some questions and maybe request Julian to conclude this session.
Sorry, Mr. Waheed is actually having problem connecting, so he's got a problem. I think it's best if we could I could try and get him on WhatsApp if that's feasible, but I think he's having some problem with the connection. But if you want to continue, Nigel, perhaps you want to take some questions. I think.
Yeah, I think.
Amjad has some questions, I think.
We've got Mr. Purvey again. I don't see anybody else. So, Mr. Purvey, please put your question.
Yeah, I think that was an excellent presentation of what the opportunity of developing the agri sector is. But for somebody who's been importing from Pakistan for the last 40 years and wishes to export and import more, my central question as a customer who wants to import from Pakistan, I don't think has been addressed. So I'd ask Shafiq Saab if he can actually answer this question. You know, Dr. Israr talked about the value chain being developed from farm to fork. But I think the fundamental problem is what is she doing different, or what is the Punjab board doing different than the last, you know, governments of the 30 years, where your supply chain and value chain is consistent. So she hasn't told me what's different. What will ensure that the products that come, whether they're frozen, chilled, whether they're value added, or whether they're fresh, that value chain will remain consistent and it will be competitive. So that answer, I don't think the question's been answered for me as an importer for 40 years.
Dr. Irfan, would you like to respond, please?
Yes, definitely. Although that I missed first part of your question because of some technical problem, I was not online. However, I got the gist. Okay, so I would just reply by saying that the economic situation and handling the economic situation obviously is a complex thing. There is no straight answer to these questions. What we are trying to do right now, as I was just saying and my line dropped, that we want to we are working on two sides. A, the supply chain strengthening that you mentioned, and I'll just share with you what are we trying to do in that regard. And B, connecting the businesses across the globe with other businesses. And so for that, we are planning to have a series of B2B sessions. These B2B sessions will enable our businesses to outreach the markets, and also that we are trying to update the databases in Punjab so that we know what kind of facilities and what kind of export surplus we have in the province. Another thing that we are doing is outreaching our own chambers, and we are collecting a list of their potential projects which they would like to showcase, and we are now updating our website so that we can put up all those prospective potential projects on our websites, so that the potential investors, and not only investors but also for the trade purpose, they can have an updated knowledge and information about our products and about our projects. So these are the things that we are doing on the connecting, facilitating and marketing side. Another thing that we are doing is that we are outreaching our missions to organize delegations who can visit Pakistan, although that because of COVID situation right now, we are not being very successful, and that's why we are suggesting B2B online. Now I move on to the supply chain side. On the supply chain side, the government is outreaching the producers. For example, I give you an example that tomorrow I'm going to South Punjab, and we are having a conversation with all the 8 chambers in South Punjab and the 3 women chambers there. So we are having a networking session with all the 11 chambers of South Punjab being focusing more on agriculture. And we are actually establishing our help desk. We are inaugurating that help desk on 11th of February in South Punjab, so that the producers and they can access us. Yes, Amjad, do you want to say something?
Yeah, Dr. Effa, I understand everything that you're saying, but you're not answering the crux of my question. You are meeting the chambers and all these federations, that's fine, but the value is created by the farmer or the factory. So if you had listened to Paddy's presentation and the lady's presentation, what we need to do is actually those poor farmers who can't read and write, how are they going to adopt the certification and quality processes? Are you going to give them a subsidy? Is TEVTA going to go into those farms and actually spend some time there and train them up so there is consistency in production, then grading, and then value chain, and then so that virtuous cycle repeats? That is fundamentally what Pakistan hasn't done for the last 40 years. And that's why I'm asking, what is it that you're doing different?
Okay, let me comment on that. Let me comment on that. We are working, Industries Department in Punjab is working on a proposal for micro, small and medium enterprises. And in that policy, we are discussing to establish, it's a proposal at this moment, a certification and testing lab for small and medium enterprises, micro, small and medium enterprises, where all these things will be covered because they will be facilitated according to their capacity. Another proposal in that policy is to establish a credit line for micro and small enterprises, where they will be facilitated to get the credit without those complicated formalities. And there are a few other things as well in that policy, and it will soon be presented. So this is my answer to your question as far as Punjab is concerned.
I think that's thank you for that, Dr. Iqbal. I think my own experience here is and I know Mr. Pervez's frustration, because you know, by nature, entrepreneurs do things, you know, they want government out of the way, they want to trade and everything. But there is a very real, I spent last 20 years of my life, you know, doing the interface between private sector and the public sector. And it's so both sides understand what the other needs. I mean, I think there's a real opportunity perhaps for the British Standards Institution and British consultants like Paddy's company to do perhaps an online seminar with the members of the different chambers of commerce in Punjab and indeed other parts of Pakistan. And indeed, now is an excellent time for these online seminars. But I was saying earlier, in my own career, I worked as a consultant in Central Asia, and the Central Asian companies have exactly the same issues. And we basically held seminars with them so they understood what the certification procedures are. So through Rashid and PBBC, perhaps Rashid, you could put Erica and Paddy in contact with Dr. Iqbal, and it may be that there could be some direct seminar there. But thank you, Dr. Iqbal. I have another.
Just a very quick thing that this online seminar suggestion is excellent, and I would request if I can get the concerned person can just send a line to my focal person, because day after tomorrow, when I'll be talking to these 11 chambers in South Punjab, I will include it in my talking points. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Iqbal. Mr. Shahzad.
Thank you, Nigel. I think your proposal is very good, that we need to take advantage of this online webinars facility and next, these standards agencies, manufacturers and producers. Just one thing, I'm just responding to what you said. I think it's very important, and sitting in this market, I can vouch for that yes, there's a need for certification and adoption of standards. But is there a possibility that somehow we can do a reverse engineering, and the big companies or the big importers sitting in the UK can help or assist Pakistani farmers, kind of give them a hand holding and guide them as to how they can get this registration, help them in the process of those facilities. We know that we have all those facilities, we produce good quality food, but yes, we lack these standards. We sitting in High Commission, we can connect the people, but I think yes, they should come forward, but maybe on this side as well, which I'm looking forward to, maybe big investors, big companies, and they can help these SMEs and small companies based in Pakistan to get themselves registered and comply with the standards of the new UK standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shahzad. I know we have another question from Mr. Pervez, but just to come in briefly there, I think first of all, get Erica from British Standards Institution to talk about, because they will work with consultants that can work with the companies to help them understand the certification processes. And then perhaps through Rashid and your good self, the British Deputy High Commissioner mentioned that they are looking at a new trade facilitation programme as part of the British Aid programme. And this is just the sort of work to help SMEs get certification that I'm sure that programme would talk. So I think offline, if you could talk to the British Deputy High Commissioner about when that might be coming on. Julian, we're running up towards the end of our time, aren't we?
I realise that. I do realise that we are running towards the end, but I'm quite happy to continue for a few minutes if everybody wants to. We still haven't heard from Wahid Ahmad. Rashid, I saw that you had him on a WhatsApp a couple of minutes ago.
Yes,
but just before we do that, one of the positions that has come out of this, when we're talking about the micro, small and SME businesses and farmers and producers in Pakistan, we must recognise that it's impossible for them to individually approach BSI and secure standards applications. We have to facilitate that probably through buying groupings or communities that represent the farmers. And this is something that I think that should be looked at by PBIT in assisting a group of farmers to be able to promote some of their products. So I think that there needs to be some real thought as to how we engage with the little guys. Amjad, I'm going to let you have a very quick observation, comment, and then we're going to move on. Ideally, hopefully, for a bit of a comment from Wahid Ahmad through Rashid, and then I think we'll start beginning to wind down but I'm happy for a few more minutes.
Yeah, Julian, I'll be very quick. I understand the time constraints. And Shafiq Bhai, I totally agree with you. The way forward, I think the problem, and we actually go around the world and look at factories and examine them. The issue that you've got with certification, yes, you need certification, but that certification needs to be actually employed on a continuous basis. It's not just a tick exercise book. And the only way Shafiq Sab forward is companies like us need to do joint ventures with those companies who've got the capability. So we get the product. So it's an ongoing, I have then skin in the game, and I ensure that I get the product and I grow those companies. That's the only way forward for this to happen. And, you know, we at Jumpstart Pakistan have got a perfect model. I can share that with you. We're already doing it, but I think it needs to be accelerated.
Absolutely. I agree with that concept entirely. This is where Pakistan producers need support, assistance from the British groups that have the know-how and the technology as to how to do this, and they can act as the local agent in the UK to manage the BSI processes. But the whole idea is to get the producers engaging with British companies and groups, and the people like Amjad and his company are perfect routes through which we can do that. The issue is we need probably several thousand Amjads in the process, but that's another matter.
I'll get you there.
Erica, you've been listening to a lot of conversations mentioning BSI. Would you like to add anything to that? We can't hear you, Erica.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's lovely. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you, and thank you all for your comments. It's been a really good discussion. I think Amjad, you have a very good point on, you know, you want to bring in Pakistani produce into the UK and you want to fuel the economy there, but you need some consistency. And I think, you know, when you look at the standards that people operate to, they're not just there for corporate wallpaper. They're not just there to say, yes, I've got this, so let me in. They really are there so that people are providing you with good quality, consistent product. And I think, yes, we've worked with multiple cooperatives before from the farming side of things, but yeah, I'd be happy to maybe tailor some of the access to market content that we've got for that audience, because I don't think the same messages that we've discussed on this call would perhaps be so applicable to people further down the supply chain.
Thank you, Erica. Julian, I think we've probably come to the end of the discussion here. Would you like me to hand over to you and you sum up?
Sorry, Nigel. Can we just have Wahid? He's very quickly. If Wahid, I'll try and connect him via the WhatsApp. See if you can hear him. Wahid, over to you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, there's any technical problem, and I'm not used to with the Microsoft, so sorry. Just I want to talk about the Pakistan fruit and vegetable and value-added industry potential to UK market. First, all Pakistan fruit and vegetable exporter, importer, and merchant association established in 1986. We have total members all over, more than 200. We have head office in Karachi and zonal office in Lahore and Sargodha, and I want to tell you about the world export fruit and vegetable is $200 billion, and average growth in world export 4.1%, and Pakistan export last year 2019 to 20 $730 million, and Pakistan share to the world export 0.65. So we fresh food export from Pakistan, the top 10 countries is Afghanistan, UAE, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Philippines, Indonesia, UK. And we have main product in food. We have mango, quinoa, dates, and in the vegetables we have like different okra, ladyfingers, and other different vegetables. And just I want to, don't take too long, just I want to tell you that how much export, vegetable export from Pakistan. Pakistan food export to UK in 2019, what I have the statistics from ITC, that Pakistan exported to UK $21.3 million, and import UK from the world is $2.9 billion, and Pakistan has the share 0.73. And if I talk about the vegetables, we import in 2019 is 1.80, and vegetable import by UK from world is $4.3 billion. And if I say that the Pakistan export share in respect of total vegetable import of UK, 0.04%. And fruit and vegetable export by Pakistan to the UK altogether is $23 million. And fruit and vegetable import by UK from the world is $7.2 billion. Pakistan export share in respect of total food and vegetable import of UK, 0.77%. The area of production of fruits in Pakistan, the top is citrus like quinoa, is a mandarin, easy peeling fruit, then mango, then apple, dates, guava. Then I say Pakistan value added sector major product is mango pulp, clarifier, apple juice concentrate, quinoa juice concentrate, and we have date juice concentrate. And value we export, Pakistan export to the world is 4.2 million. And if I say Pakistan focus product to UK market, for UK market, among our main food and vegetable product, we need to focus on the following as per average crop: yearly production export share in global market, fresh mango, potatoes, onions, value added fruits, pulp, puree, concentrate, mango, quinoa, apple, guava, peach, dates. If I say promotion of horticulture product to UK, trade mission must conduct single country exhibition on yearly basis with comprehensively homework starting from year 2021. Delegation from Pakistan to promote food and vegetable promotion of supermarket in UK. Government should subsidize this promotion. We are now, I'm going to talking about the Horticulture Vision 2030. We already, objective of Horticulture Vision 2030 is development of rural economy, food security and job creation, export enhancement. What we say in 2 years in Horticulture Vision, we can go $1 billion, and in 5 years, 2.5, and in 10 years, $6 billion. What we know, what is the lake in Pakistan, what we are facing in Pakistan, what is the challenges in Pakistan is climate change, global warming, and we are wasting our water. If I say we are using our water in agriculture is 90%, and we are wasting 60% in Pakistan because we are doing the flood system in Pakistan. We should adopt the drip irrigation technology. What is the major problem in Pakistan? Because our varieties in Pakistan, what is the major challenges in Pakistan for agriculture is cost of production, because our yield is very low. If I compare my apple production, citrus production, potato, onions, any product compared to the world, we are very less yield. So that's why we have cost of production problem. So I'm very interested from UK if they are come to Pakistan and invest in this sector, because there is a lot of opportunity in Pakistan in this fruit and vegetable, because there is a problem in Pakistan, a lot of things, and then there is opportunity also. So we have to focus in Pakistan research and development to introduce a new varieties.
I think we had some very interesting statistics from Wahid. What I think I'll do now, if I may, is I will close the webinar. Essentially, in closing remarks, we have heard some really compelling statistics that show that there's an enormous opportunity in developing food exports from Pakistan. Pakistan, by the same token, need know-how, technology, and support from the UK and UK businesses, as we've discussed as well. We have greater connectivity between the two countries with airlines, etc., greater communications. We have supportive governments where there is the need to build and develop all of this. But I thank all of the speakers, and I thank Jake Murray, Erica Colson, Paddy Willis, Shafiq Shahzad, Rashid, we can hear you. So I thank all of the people at PBBC who have supported and helped put all this together. I thank British High Commission in Karachi for their support, and to Mike and his team. And I thank the Pakistan High Commissioner, His Excellency Muazzam Ahmed Khan, and Shafiq Shahzad for all of their work in helping put this together. Nigel, thank you very much for your input as moderator. And again, to the speakers, James, Erica, Paddy, and Efa and Wahid, thank you all very much. This has been extraordinarily interesting, and we now have the next obligation. We haven't just been talking about this, we need to follow up and make things happen. So we have to deliver, and we have to make sure that things happen as a result of this, and that's what we're all about. And thank you again for everybody concerned. Thank you for your time, thank you for your efforts, and let's make sure that something is generated out of all of this work that's been put in. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, James, and everybody, the High Commission, Nigel, Paddy, Ellis. Thank you all for joining. Thank you.